Good morning. We are delighted to have so many of you here to hear the adventures from Don Campbell. And I'm going to turn the time now over to our Potpourri board member, Julie Redd, and she will introduce Don Campbell to us.
It's a pleasure to be here, and this is actually my cousin, my only cousin's husband, Don Campbell. And we were not living in town. We had moved up to Seattle when I heard about this, and I thought, this is so cool. It was 11 years ago now, in 2014, and he decided he was going to walk to St. George and figure it out. And if you read this, he had already had both knees replaced and the melanoma that was on his foot, and he still did it. And so anyway, please, and it was from Sandy to St. George. They live in Sandy. And we welcome Handcart Campbell, Don Campbell.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. She says my name's Don Campbell, but I like to call myself Handcart Campbell because of what I did. And I want to give you a little bit of information about why I decided to do this. One time, a friend gave me a book to read. It was called Walkabout. And this tells about a family from Scotland. I don't know if we can get that up on the screen or not. Walkabout. The first one. The second, that's not the first one. How do I get that?
Is it just advance with this?
Anyway.
Oops.
Is there one right before that? Okay, I'll just point this out to you. Okay. Anyway, I read this book. Talks about this family from Scotland that immigrated to Australia. There was a 10-year-old boy, his mom, and his dad. They immigrated to Sydney. I don't know if any of you have been to Sydney, Australia, but Australia is a fun place to visit. I've been there. The mom came down with cancer. So they sent her back to Scotland. And the little boy, his dad didn't have anything with him, wasn't want to take care of him or anything. So he went into the outback of Australia, and he hooked up with an Aborigine. And he lived out there for about 15 years, and he learned what the Aborigine people did, how they lived and existed and so forth. And then he decided, I want to go back and reconnect with my family. So he went back into Sydney. He was able to reconnect with his father and hook up with his family again in Sydney. And when I got through reading this book, I said to myself, I want to go back and hook up to my family. My family walked across the plains in 1852. John Civil Smith, Edwin D. Woolley came out with Brigham Young. He was one of my cousins. He is the grandfather of Spencer Woolley Kimball. So Spencer Woolley Kimball and I are related through Edwin D. Woolley. He had 7 wives. I'm descended through one of the other wives. I also had Batemans in my family across the plains. And some of these names may be related to you people. My wife has Richardsons, Andrus, and Cullers. I know she's related to the Cullers. And so I wanted to reconnect with these people. And I thought, well, what can I do to do that? And so I thought, well, they came across the plains. Some of them maybe pushed hand carts. And so I'm going to buy myself a hand cart. So I went to the DI and I paid $35. I paid $35 for this, and I changed the design a little bit. I used some PVC pipe and closed it off. My wife made a weather-resistant cover for it. And so I wanted to prepare for this hike. You know, I'm a former Boy Scout. A Scout is always prepared. If you're prepared, you're successful. So I decided I want to walk around Sandy, Draper, Harriman, Midvale. So I started pushing this. I put a 60-pound bag of salt in here. I would push it. The pioneers they were limited on their hand carts to 17 pounds or 19 pounds or something like that. But I figured with all my food and different things, 60-pound would get me into shape. So I started in January, and I walked about 320 miles just around that area. Some days I'd walk 6 miles, some days I'd walk 14 miles. I'd walk in the wind and rain and snow and things like that, because I figured when I walked to St. George, I'm going to walk through snow sometimes, which I did. And then my wife and I took a little trip from Sandy, drove down to St. George. We rode down Highway 89, and we tried to pick out spots along the trail where I was going to set up my tent or maybe go into a motel. And so we checked that out. And my wife, she didn't, back to me walking around the neighborhoods and picking things up. I always carried a plastic bag with me, and people are really trashy. There are cans all over the place. And by the time I got through walking, I had picked up, over the months, I'd picked up about 6 or 7 bags of cans. And so I thought, well, I'm going to change my name. I decided I was going to call myself the Enviro-Can Man, or the Aluminum Can Man, or the I Can Man. And when people came up to me and says, "You're too old to walk to St. George, you've had your knees replaced, you'd had cancer in the bottom," I'd look them in the face and say, "I can, man." So I was pretty sure I could do this. They didn't think I could do it. My wife thought I was going to die. She prayed and prayed, and she says, "I know you're going to die." I says, "Well, you got insurance to take care of me and find another husband or something." And anyway, I had my thing on. There's my a friend of mine. He gave me this jacket to wear. It's an FBI jacket. He was into the FBI. He wasn't an FBI agent himself, but he gave me this to wear. He says, "You wear this, that'll keep all the drug dealers away from you." And he'll keep all the wild women away from you too. And so I decided I'd wear this FBI jacket, and this really came in handy because sometimes you can see here, this is the day I left. It snowed on us, and so I left Sandy on April 28th, I believe, in a snowstorm. This was This is one of my friends from the gym. This is the mayor, Sandy, Larry Smith. This is me. But I left in the snowstorm, and I have a friend, Russell. I call him Porter Rockwell Russell, and I'll explain to you why I call him Porter Rockwell. He had his trombone, so he was playing the trombone as I was walking away from my house. And I walked down to this one gentleman. Larry Smith walks with me, and I walked down to Don McCaffrey's house. And then I walked down to, I lived up on 13th East up in East Sandy, and walked down to 7th East. And then when I got down there, I was pushing my hand cart along. All of a sudden, this tire went flat. You know, I had walked for over 300 miles getting ready for this. Never once did I have a flat tire. And the day I left, I had a flat tire. So I had bought, just so in case I had problems, I'd bought an inner tube and some glue and stuff to fix it. So I took it off and I fixed it. And then I started along the trail again, heading out towards West Jordan, and it went flat again. And I had to fix it again. And then I'll tell you something a little later about that. Anyway, I got it pumped up and it was staying, I put some slime in it to fill in the holes and so forth. And then I started walking out to Redwood Road because the way I was going to go down Highway 89. I was not going to hike down Highway 15 because there's just too much traffic there. And so I went out to Riverton. My sister and brother-in-law stopped by and saw me for a second, and I continued on the road down past Camp Williams, and I was staying with a friend out at Eagle Mountain the first night. So I walked about 23 miles the first day, and when I was getting out to Eagle Mountain, it went flat again. And I was really discouraged, and my friend came and picked me up and hauled me over to his house, and then I took the tire off and started looking at it, and there were all these little bull thistles or goat heads or whatever they were already all over in there, and I had never noticed them before, and so I decided I need to check that every day, make sure there's none there, so it'll punch a hole in my my inner tube. Then I thought about my life again. Sometimes my life goes flat, or things just don't go right, and I need to check and get rid of all those little sins or those little things that make my life or my tire go flat. And so I check that every day for the next 19 days. It took me 17 days of walking to get to St. George. Not once did it go flat because I checked it. And I thought, if we checked our lives regularly and get rid of all the things that make our life go flat, we're going to be happy. Things are going to be really good for us. So anyway, I continued down to Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs, stayed one night there and fixed my tire, and then I headed out the next day for Alberta. I don't know if you all know where Alberta is. It's on the west side of Utah Lake down, and so I walked down for and these are the mountains. The mountains were just covered with snow. That's south of Richfield there, but beautiful. The mountains were just beautiful. I was enjoying the scenery and enjoying the walk, and some guy was stopped to the side of the road, and he pulled me over and wanted to talk to me, and he wanted to talk politics. He was a developer, a real estate developer in Saratoga Springs, and he talked to me about Mia Love and Curtis, and somebody else was running against Mia Love, and wanted me to vote for Mr. Curtis because apparently they had regulations in Saratoga Springs that as a builder he didn't like, And anyway, we spent a half an hour. I was telling him my story, and then he had me tell me his. Then I continued on the way down, and another few miles, two of my friends from my ward up in Sandy stopped by and gave me some water and a couple of crackers or some things to munch on. And then I continued on down towards Alberta, enjoying the scenery. And one of the things I did, this is, I had the goal of going to the St. George Tabernacle. That was going to be my end of my journey. But I didn't think about that. I would look down the highway and I would see a telephone pole or a tree, and that was my goal. I would walk to that one. And then I would set another goal, and then I walked to that one. After a few little steps, I'd reached my goal. I went down almost to Alberta. There was a garbage dump there. It really smelled, and uh, uh, before I got there, here comes my friend Russell Larson. I call him Porter Rockwell Larson because he brought me some food and water and says, I'll go into Alberta and I'll find a place for you to set up your tent. I just said, sounds great. So he headed down to Alberta, and then I continued along, and a couple hours later, I arrived down there and he met me, and he says, I went to the post office. I thought maybe you could set your tent up around behind the post office. And he says, but let's go over to the church. Maybe set it up on the lawn over the church. So we got over there, and there was a sign that says, if you're going to use this property, call this person. So I called it, and he says, well, we just turned on the sprinkling system. So if you set your tent up there, you're going to get wet during the night. And then Russell had met a man at the post office. His name was Randy Critchfield. And Randy had come back over and says, I want you to come over and set your tent up in my front yard. It's going to be safe. There's no water or anything, And so I went over and set my tent up in Randy's front yard. His wife is named Jamie, Randy and Jamie Critchfield. And they fed me dinner. They brought a cot out and put in my tent rather than just sleeping on my little rubber pad. They had an extra sleeping bag and put that over the top of it. We had a good visit at the dinner table and that evening. And then I went to sleep, and the next morning they got up about 6 o'clock. Says, we've got to go to work. He worked back up in Orem with some computer firm, and she worked someplace else up this way. And they says, we have left the front door open for you. You go in the house and help yourself to anything you want in the fridge, or you can go to the bathroom or anything. We've left it open for you. And I just thought, what wonderful people. I wanted to cry because they trusted me to go in their house. Then I said, I can't do that. I'm not going to go in their house. So anyway, I cooked myself some breakfast. I had a little stove, and then I continued on over towards Goshen. And one of Critchfield's sons had built a Eagle Scout project there in Alberta about the veterans that had died that were from Alberta. And so I went and looked at that. And I continued walking over towards Goshen and walking past a beautiful pond with all these white swans on it. And I was trying to enjoy the scenery as I went along, And so I continued walking over towards Goshen. And then some guy comes up next to me in a 32 Chev pickup truck, an old classic pickup truck. And he had his dog in the back. And he says, my name is, what was his name? Anyway, we talked for a bit. Oh, and then there was one picture here that I forgot to mention. You saw the picture of the lady with the oxen yoke.
It went really fast.
That went over. Well, there was that's a. Yeah, this lady, her name is Miranda Allen. That's one of my great grandma. She crossed the plains when she was 15 years old. She drove an ox cart all across the plains from Nauville, Illinois to Salt Lake City. And this was the yoke from her ox cart. And I don't know if any of you have been up to Gardner Village up in West Jordan, but right in front of the restaurant, this ox cart yoke is up on the wall. And so I thought, well, gee, my grandma at 15 years of age could cross the plains. Even though I was 75 years old, I can walk to St. George. So that was one of my incentives to keep walking. Anyway, I got up here to to Goshen, and this man stopped and talked to me, and his wife was on the city council there in Goshen, and we talked for a bit, and then I headed up through the valleys towards Mona. And when I got up to Mona, I was thirsty. I was really thirsty. I wanted water, and so there was this little cookie store that had just been opened there in Mona. And so I went in and talked to the lady, and she asked what I was doing, and I told her, and she told me about just opening up her cookie shop. And so I bought a couple of cookies. I paid for 2 cookies and some water. I continued on along. And then I thought, I'm going to eat one of these cookies. You know what she did? She gave me 3 cookies rather than 2. I thought that was really nice of her. And and then back up a little bit. I title these presentations, I've given quite a few of them before, Angels of Mercy along the Trail. And I started keeping track of each one of these little angels of mercies. My friends that stopped and visited with me, Jamie Critchfield and her husband, this man from Goshen. And so I continued up over towards Nephi and talked to a few other people. I had one of my old friends from high school. He and his brother stopped by, and he wanted to walk with me. So he walked for about a mile, and then he left. And people asked me, are you walking alone? I said, no. My 4 dead brothers and my 5 dead friends are walking with me. And I could just feel that. Sometimes when I was pushing my handcart into the wind, and you've seen pictures of early pioneers where there's an angel behind them pushing their handcart. That's what I felt. At times I could I just zip right along, even though I was going into the wind. And I just had a wonderful, wonderful time. And so I just had many, many angels along the trail that helped me. I've added them up. I've got over 96 of them that I've listed in my diary. And but anyway, I continued after this lady gave me the cookies. I walked over towards there's a picture of Jamie and her husband Randy Critchfield. I'll tell you a little bit later about this card, but I walked over to Nephi, walked into town, thought I might set my tent up on the city park, but no, too many people around there. So I continued on. I thought I'd go get a motel room. So I walked down to the end of Nephi, and there was a motel down there called the Safari Inn. It had just been purchased by a Polynesian man and his wife. And so I then go on to talk to them and tell her what I'm doing. And so I always try to get the best deal I can. I try to use my charm on these susceptible women, And so I kind of talked her into giving me a room for $30 that night. It was regular 50 something, And then she gave me some water, some cookies and things. And on her desk, there was this little sign here that says, "Find joy in the journey." Although I've only been on only 3 days, I was finding so much joy in what I had in those 3 days. And so I set up in the motel and went across the street to the Mexican place. And then when I came back, her husband was there, and he asked me if I wanted some coffee. And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't drink coffee." And so he says, "Well, here's some more water, and here's 4 cans of soda pop and stuff." So he gave me something to drink. And that was one of the things that I really needed along the trail was water, something to drink. 'Cause it's surprising how quickly your body needs that water. So anyway, I walked away maybe 15 miles that day, I said, and then I walked down Highway 89 towards Levan, and I had a distant cousin, the Becksteads from not Beckstead, Bateman's from Riverton had moved their dairy farm from West Jordan, not Riverton, down to south of Levan. And I had made arrangements to stay at the dairy farm because the son of one of the guys in our ward up in Sandy worked at the dairy. And so I went down there, I got all set up, and I was going to set my tent up, and they said, no, we want you to stay in the camper. So they had a camper there. Says this will be much warmer than staying outside. And so I set up in the camper, and then the wife says, I want to go buy you dinner. So she goes all the way back into Nephi and buys dinner and brings to us. And so I wander around the farm. They were able to let me take a shower in one of the places there. And I got set up. And then the next day, I headed out for Levan. And okay, I'll tell you about these little kids here in a bit. That's north of Panguish. That's my grandkids. But I headed towards Levan and then down to Bateman's. The next day I headed down towards Yuba Lake, and I don't know if any of you have been down to Yuba camping or not. Beautiful spot there. I set up. I think I got a picture here of that.
Yeah, we've already seen.
You've seen the picture. I set my tent back up on the top of the hill there, and it was beautiful, nice and calm that night. And I was some people next to her from Harriman wanted to feed me dinner, and I said, well, I got some dinner here coming, and so I was sitting up there, and then all of a sudden I see coming up the hill two cougars, and then what should I do? So I I brought a can of bear spray, so I got on my can of bear spray in case they would attack me. And they got up close to me and they said, "Here's dinner, Don." There was two BYU Cougar shirts on them. And they were from my ward. They'd driven all the way down from Sandy to bring me dinner. And my wife doesn't like me to tell that story. But another thing I took with me is people say, but because of the medical problems you've had, you need a doctor with you. So I decided to take my doctor. I had my little doctor that I took with me, and I had him right here in case I had any medical problems. I could ask him what I should do. And anyway, the next day I continued from Yuba Dam down towards Gunnison. I had a cousin down in the Gunnison area, and I was going to go visit with him. And as I got just north of Gunnison, here was some sheep herd come across the road, and it took me a half an hour for those sheep to go across the road in front of me. And there was a mother and her kids stopped and talked to me and took my picture and so forth. And then I continued walking into Gunnison down to Centerfield. And I had a cousin that lived in Centerfield. And so I was going to stay at his house, and he called me when I was up there in Gunnison and see where I was. And so he came up to see me. I was visiting my brother had a granddaughter who lived in in Gunnison. Her husband worked at the prison down there. I'd visit with them for a bit. And my cousin said, I'll go down and find a place for you to stay in my house. And so we get down to Centerfield, and there he was. He was trying to mow his lawn. His lawn was really high, and he was trying to cut out a place there. The place was just a mess. He was a hoarder. You know, he could not do. He liked to go around and go through all of his neighbors' garbage, and he would collect stuff from them. And people sort of throw stuff away, he would get mad at them. No, we can use that. So he would take it back there. His lawn, his house, everything was just covered with trash. I don't know if
Which picture?
pardon?
Which picture? Him?
No. I haven't gotten to that one yet.
Okay, I don't think it's here.
No, anyway, Richard, his name was Richard Smith, and his place was just so trashy. And so he said, well, come on over. You can maybe stay at my mother-in-law's house. Her name was Nora Lee Colvin. Her husband was a pharmacist in Gunnison. And she had a nice, well-kept yard and everything. So I decided to set my tent up in her front yard. And then she said she's going to feed me that night. So she got the food already. And then here comes Richard. And Richard's wife, Dixie, was there. And she had not lived with him back in his house for a year and a half because it was so trashy. She would not live there. She stayed with her mother. And then Richard would come over at nighttime, eat dinner, sleep, and then go back to his place in the day. And they also raised little dogs. And there was a place up in Salt Lake that would sell their little puppies that they raised. But his place was so trashy, I could not stay there. And his wife wouldn't stay there either. And so Nora Lee, she took, we went out one day right before I was going to leave, and she sang songs to me. She liked to sing. And she says, we used to have a group together at church, and we'd get together and sing these old minstrel songs. And she sang some songs to me, and one of them, I shouldn't say this, but it was titled Coon, Coon, Coon. And we wouldn't sing a song like that. It was too racist, not very appropriate. But she said they used to get together at church activities and sing that song plus other songs. And so I had a good visit with Nora Lee. And then the next day, I left to head towards Salina. And just getting outside of Chesterfield, here comes my cousin along with somebody else. He was a newspaper reporter, and he wanted to do a piece on me. And so he interviewed me, and they ended up doing a piece here in the Gunnison Valley Gazette called From Sandy to St. George. He did an article about me. And there was somebody else who did another article too. I'll tell you later. And I'm going to back up just a little bit. When I got, I was up there at Levan, Yuba Lake. Then here comes this Jamie and Randy Critchfield. They had driven all the way from Alberta, and Randy, he'd made me these little cards to pass out to people. It says Don Campbell, hand carved Trek, Sandy Design, and then Jamie, she made the most beautiful quilts. She was a quilter, and so I thought that was really kind of them to drive 110 miles just to give me these cards. And so whenever I talked to anybody from then on, I would give them a card and tell them what I was doing. And so anyway, I head down to towards Salina. I'm heading over towards. I was heading towards Richfield, and I'd been hiking. Since about yeah. You can't see this, but here's a picture of all the junk around my cousin's house, and it's just a horrible mess. And but as I was heading towards Richfield, here was a police officer that pulled me over, and that's what I was doing. And one of the things I did in preparing for this hike, I read a book on each county I was going to walk through, so I would know some of the history of that particular county. And I had also sent a letter to each police department in each county to tell them who I was, what I was doing. So they definitely didn't think I was a homeless person or a bank robber or anything. And we had a good little visit. He gave me his card and said, if you need any help, give me a call. And backing up just a little bit, when I was in Gunnison, I went to church in a care center, senior citizens care center in Chesterfield. It was Sunday and testimony meeting. So my cousin was in charge of the meeting. He shared his testimony and told a little bit about me. So I got up and talked, and afterwards, they took me a tour of the facility, and I met a bunch of people in there. But one of the things about this care center there in Chesterfield, there was a sign on the door when you went in. It says, we live, we laugh, we play, we pray, but most of all, we have fun. And those senior ladies were having a fun time. And I tried to add a little happiness to what they were doing. And I met several people as I was walking along that were in there. And so anyway, continuing on, I got to hustle here. Walking over towards Richfield, it was about 9 o'clock at night, and I'd talked to my cousin in Gunnison there, and he had been divorced. So his first wife lived in Sigurd. Her name was Ruby. And so Ruby says, well, set your tent up out here at night. It was about 9 o'clock at night when I got my tent set up. And I finally called my wife about 9:30 at night. She was really unhappy or worried about me because I hadn't called her. I tried to check with her every day. And anyway, I slept that night. And then the next morning I got up and Ruby says, did you smell a skunk? And I says, no. She says, well, I woke up about 2 o'clock and I opened the window and it just stunk out there. It was so stinky because there was a skunk. And I says, well, a skunk probably came up to my tent, sniffed it a little bit, headed the other way. He said, you stink worse than I do. And because it had been about 3 days before I'd had a shower. So the skunk headed off, and then I head over towards to Richfield, and go in and I get me a room at a hotel there in Richfield, and I decided I was going to take a bath and wash my clothes. So I got in the tub by myself, and I put all my clothes in next to me, and I just wiggled around. I was the agitator, and I washed my clothes, rinsed them out, and hung them up to dry, and so they were dry the next morning. But that evening, I'd gone over to a Chinese place to have dinner, and they give you a little fortune cookie. My fortune cookie says, "Try something new and different. You will enjoy the experience." That's what I was doing. I was trying something new. So anyway, I got up the next morning and started heading out of Richfield. I was heading down towards the Big Rock Candy Mountain. And I made this picture on there. Yeah, there we go. We laugh, pray. Most of all, we have fun.
What's the next picture you want? That one, okay?
Yeah. Okay. So I head down towards Big Rock Candy Mountain, and I made the wrong turn there in Richfield and went up by the freeway. And I said, "Where am I? I'm lost." And I started headed back to where I came from. There was a police officer, so I waved him down, and he told me where to go and get. And he says, "Then when you get down to Panguitch, stop and see my dad. My mom and dad live in Panguitch. It has a body shop down there." And so I continued on, and then I go down towards Elsinore. I don't know if you've ever been down to Elsinore. Okay, and right before I get into Elsinore, this man named Brad. There's Brad. Brad stops by, and he gave me a $20 bill. Says, "Here, I want you to go over to the Cowboy Grub and have lunch on me." I thought that was really great of him, and so he gave me the $20 bill. Then I was heading up towards the Cowboy Grub, and another guy calls me and says, "I want you to come and eat with me. I want to feed you." And I said, "Well, no, this Brad gave me some money, so I'm going to the Cowboy Grub." And so I go and have a great lunch. There was a man in there playing the guitar and singing cowboy songs, and an older lady up dancing around and everything. And so I get ready to pay my bill, $7. They would not take my money. They says, "No, we appreciate what you're doing, and we want you to have a good time. So we're not gonna take your money." And I thought that was really, really, really kind of them. And so I continue walking, get down towards the Big Rock Candy Mountain, and then my wife, she drove down to see me, so she walked about a mile with me, and then I sent her down to the Rock to get us a motel room down there, and then I had a friend in St. George, Bonnie Rawson, whose cousin lived in Sevier or Joseph. I can't remember which one it was. I think it was Sevier, which is right before you get to the Big Rock Candy Mountain. And she said, "Stop in and see him. He'll maybe let you set your tent up in his yard or something." And my wife had already sent her down to get a motel room, so I stopped in, and he wasn't there, but his son Terry was. So I talked to Terry, and then so it was raining really hard, and I couldn't get a hold of my wife to tell her come and get me because it's raining hard. And I put my hand card in one of the sheds there at Terry Levi's house, and so Terry, he says, "Here, I'll drive you down." He drove me all the way 7 miles down to the Rock to where my wife was at the motel room. Drops me off, and then so we rest a bit, and then we clean up, and we're going to go to dinner over that night over a place called Hoover's. It's an old restaurant with lots of old pictures and antique stuff on the wall. And just as we go in, here comes Terry Levi, his wife Becca, and two of their daughters. They say, "We want to feed you dinner. We want to get to know you better." So we went in there we spent probably 2 hours in there visiting and eating, and he probably spent $120 on us for that night. And Becca had a business where she had a website called Learn to Laugh. She would go around to places like this and teach people how to laugh. And she says she kept really busy at that. And then my wife, the next day, she comes back. She picks me up. Well, we leave the motel. She comes back up to Levi's house where I can pick up my hand cart. And then I head down along the Severe River. And as I was going along the Severe River, I thought, I got to listen to some music. So I'd loaded a little MP3 player here with lots of music so I could listen to it. And then I thought, the pioneers didn't have any music to listen to. I walked along the North Platte River in Nebraska, and they didn't listen to music or anything. And so I decided I wasn't going to listen to music. So I did not listen to that music at all. But I sang to myself. You know, I'd sing the handcart song. Some must walk and some must pull, or no, some must push and some must pull as I go walking up the hill until on my way I go until I reach the tabernacle. Then I'd sing other church songs that I knew. That's how I entertained myself. But I did not listen to any music because I know the pioneers didn't do that. And okay, south of and then a couple of times my little grandkid came and walked with me. Okay, then where am I? Okay, then we're trying to get down to Gunnison. And then my daughter and three of my grandkids come, and they had come down to see me. And so I put these shirts. I had some extra shirts made up. These were made up by my nephew, had a print shop, and I put these on them so that people could see them walking along the road. And I would kind of change them out each day. I'd wear a green one day, maybe a pink one, or so people could see me. And my grandkids walked for me a little ways down to Panguitch. And then am I about out of time?
About 5 months.
Okay. Anyway, so I walked down to Panguitch. I don't know if any of you heard of the blanket walk. Back in the 1880s, it snowed really heavy, and they were running out of food in Panguitch. And so they had to go over to Beaver to get some food. And the oxen would keep falling in the snow. So somebody would walk along in front of them, put a blanket down, the oxen, and they did it. It took them hours and hours to get over to Beaver, but then they were able to get some food. Okay, then I'm going to skip ahead here. I'm going past to Hatch, which is south of Panguitch, and I was going to set my tent up in a little camping spot there, and the kid that was opening up was a physical trainer from St. George. He was come up, and his grandpa owned this place, and he asked how I was doing. I said, my legs are really hurting. He told me I was walking wrong, that he told me how to walk properly, and he gave me some strength tape to put here on my legs so that they would stop hurting. And when I started doing that, the pain all went away. Okay, then when I got south of Hatch, let's back up. Okay, can you put the picture with the dead deer on the road? Yeah, I went down to Marysville, sat up there. One night I stayed in the Butch Cassidy Inn in Circleville. Stayed in Marysville, and then south of Hatch in Marysville, I saw lots of dead deer along the road, and That next picture shows a man named Donald O'Doul. Is that Don? No, that's John Paul Jones. This is a Scotsman I met. But the other guy, let's see, we get this other guy right here. Okay, he is from Dublin, Ireland. He had cancer. He's been cycling around the Western United States for 2.5 years, and so he stopped and we visited, and he had some fishing poles in the back. And I said, "Do you cook fish? Yeah, if I see a place to fish, I'll fish. I don't worry about a fishing license or anything." And we talked about the dead deer. He says, about a week ago, I was coming along and here comes a truck. It hits a deer and kills it. So I go out and I cut off a bunch of back straps and steaks and things and took them with me. And I say, if I see a deer, I'll cut off some meat and eat. And he says, that's one of the things I do to feed myself. And he's very interesting. I can't tell you everything he told me, but he was full of baloney, I tell you. We talked about the Blarney Stone. And anyway, okay, so I head down into Long Valley. When I was in Long Valley, there's one road that goes over towards Cedar Breaks. And I usually always walked on the road facing traffic. But when I stopped at the top of Long Valley, there was a little service station there, and I got myself a ice cream cone, and then I started walking with traffic. And I thought, I had to walk back on the other side of the road. So I switched back to the other side of the road. No more than 5 minutes later, here comes this big snowplow on the other side of the road. Had I been on that side, he would have wiped me out totally, because there was no place he could go because of the traffic, and the road was so narrow. So the Lord protected me on that, I tell you. And then I better hurry finish this off. Yeah. Okay. One last thing. One angel along the road were the park rangers at Zion's National Park. My wife was coming to Panama to pick me up, and my truck broke down in the middle of the tunnel in Zion's Park, and she was able to get out. And the rangers they made arrangements for somebody to come from St. George and pick up my truck, and they sent somebody to find me. And the ranger comes up. And I found the subject, and he explained what had happened. But anyway, I met so many wonderful people. This guy, John Paul Jones from Scotland. I met people from Italy, a kid from London who'd ridden his bike from Chicago all the way down to St. George. And I just had the most wonderful time. So many people helped me along the road. One last thing, okay, I'll end it with this. I took 2 pairs of shoes because I wore the first pair out. By the time I got to Panguitch, the sole had worn off here in the toes, and so I switched shoes. And I wondered about the pioneers. What did they do when they were out? Did they wrap their feet with rags and things like that? And so I felt very, very blessed, and I just had the most wonderful, wonderful time. And I had a lot of other experiences I can't share at this time. We don't have enough time. But anyway, that's about it. There's
some more pictures.
We'll just show them.
Okay, this is the John Paul Jones. He's from Musselburgh, Scotland. And I talked to him about Scotland because I'm Scottish, I'm Irish, I'm English. That's my tent that I slept in. One place, I looked at old houses around town. Each town I went through to see what the pioneers did. And then when I was in Panguitch, that was on Mother's Day, and I checked into this hotel, the Blue Pines Hotel, and she gave me 2 rooms for the price of one. And I went to church. It was Mother's Day. When I came back, there was that note on the thing. Don, if you want to stay an extra night, it's free. I'm going to give it to you. And I just, things like that. One lady in Junction, a school teacher, she kept walking along, gave me a $10 bill, and people gave me money. These guys here who were from Ottawa, Canada, they gave me the ride through the tunnel after my truck had broken down. So I just saw some beautiful, beautiful country. And if you ever get a chance, try it. You can do it. And believe in yourself, because you can, whatever you set your mind to do, you can do. Okay, any questions? Okay. Okay.
What a remarkable trek that was. Was there a question?
Lost weight walking.
Did you lose weight
Yes.
walking?
I lost about 20 pounds before I walked. Every week I go to the gym 5 days a week, and I used to do spin cycle. I did that for 23 years, and about 2 months ago I quit and I put on 10 pounds since then. But yes, I did lose some weight. Yeah.
To choose to go with the picture, and why did you choose the ground?
Repeat the question, please.
Why did you choose to go?
No,
with
on the mic. On the mic.
Why did you choose to go?
Oh,
Yeah.
in the winter?
Well, he left in April.
Yeah, I left in April. It was, yeah, it wasn't as cold and windy, but I went from snow, rain, wind. There was always a wind in my face the whole time. And like I said, I felt like I had somebody help me push me along. Yeah. And then when I got to St. George, the weather had warmed back up. And I had quite a few people meet me at the Tabernacle. A lady from the Spectrum newspaper, she did a piece on me. And if you want to see me on TV, they did a piece on me on TV. You just Google handcart to Zion, ABC for Utah. And you'll see a thing that was about a 2.5 minute piece on me. Show me my handcart, my hat, my beard. I thought I wouldn't shave today, so you'd think I was. Yes.
Don, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
It's been a wonderful hour with you. And Julie, thank you so much for arranging this delightful potpourri. Have a good afternoon, and we will see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock for breakfast.
Okay.